If you drive a beater, it needs a muffler, it's rusted out, you might want to borrow someone's car for that appointment, okay? But you don't have to drive that exotic car. People want authenticity in today's world. However, you do want to dress the part.
Welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Remington Ramsey, and I'm a little underdressed because we have luxury listing guru, Mr. Michael LaFido, on the show. How's it going, Mike?
Doing well, thank you.
What's interesting. I see your Real Producers cover in the background there. International man of mystery, Michael LaFido, author and speaker. How many books are you up to now? Is this your second or third?
This is I believe our fourth. So my first book was How I Became a Top Producing Agent Working Part-Time Hours. My second book, which is, I guess, probably our most popular book, which is called Luxury Listing Specialist. Yep. It's on Amazon. And then we also have a book called Outside the Box. And then our next book is called Secret to Top Luxury Agents. It's going to come out before the end of the year. So yeah, we've written several books.
I can't wait to get my signed copy of your last book. That's exciting. I've personally had you come and speak in Indianapolis. Great content, and obviously a sexy topic that never goes out of style, which is luxury, regardless of what we're talking about. In this case, it's going to be real estate. But you consistently do $30 to $40 million in personally, and then your team does more than that. But if you look at the top agents in the Chicago market, everyone else does more transactions, which means your average sale is much higher. And even if you're listening to this and you're in a market that doesn't have luxury, I think just increasing your average sale price is something that you can speak to. So we're pumped to get into this.
Absolutely, right? So we're going into turbulent times. There's historically low number of listings, right? Inventory is really low right now. Buyers are hesitant because their confidence level in the market isn't high. They think home prices are going to go down. 38% of homeowners own the house free and clear. 2/3 of homeowners, have a lot of equity in their home right now, and interest rates are high. So you have all this downward pressure, right? So what can agents do to combat that? What can agents do as we're entering into goal planning for 2024? What can they do to sustain the level of business they want or increase their production over last year? Even though transaction count might be down, well, the easiest way, I think, the lowest hanging fruit is to increase their average sale price.
Yeah. Well, let's define luxury before we jump into how to break into the luxury market, or if we're already in that, how to increase our sales. What is luxury? Because if I think about my grandparents who live in a condo, it's not big, but man, is it nice. Everything that they have is marble and gold, and so. Yeah. But when we talk about luxury in real estate, are we specifically talking about the size of the home and how much it costs?
We're not, right? So there's many factors, including amenities as well as the materials, et cetera. But the easiest way to define luxury is through price point, although that's not the correct answer. But when you're talking about a brokerage, when you're talking about franchises and luxury divisions, the simplest way to figure it out is price points. And so I believe that there's 4 primary price points in most markets, and there's a 5th in bigger cities. So I want to answer your question, but before I answer your question on luxury, let's go into those. I call them buckets. Okay, so the first bucket is what I call starter level or entry level or starter price point. You can't define that unless you know the second bucket. The second bucket is average. Yeah. The average price point. And again, the average price point for a single family home in Indianapolis is different than condo or vertical living or a townhouse. But so each category's got these 5 price points. So you got entry level, bucket number 1. Bucket number 2 is average. You can find that out through your title company, your MLS, the real estate board. That's going to be the key to figure out all the other buckets. The third bucket is what I define as a high-end property or a high-end home. In this case, a high-end home is a home that's 2 times that average sale price. The fourth bucket is what we define as a luxury price point home. A luxury price point home is a home that is 3 times the average sale price. So that's bucket 4. So again, I was doing a training in Kokomo, Indiana, and I was on breaking into luxury. It was an Explode conference. And I had someone come up to me and say, I came specifically for your breakout session on breaking into luxury, but I was hesitant because we don't have luxury homes in Kokomo, or at least I didn't think, because I thought it was $1 million and above, because that's what most brokerages define as luxury.
Promoters, yeah.
But based on my definition, 80,000 was the average times three, or around 240,000. She goes, we have a lot of 200, we have a lot of three, fours, and fives. We just don't have a lot of $700,000, $800,000, $900,000 plus properties. So we define a luxury home price point wise as 3 times the average sale price, or a condo 3 times the average condo average sale price. And then the fifth bucket is only in larger cities, and we define that as ultra luxury, and we define it as 10 times that average sale price. So in Kokomo, 80 times 10, or 800,000 and above. You might not have any there, but in Indianapolis or in Chicago or New York or, LA, or you name it, Miami, you have ultra luxury.
Man, ultra luxury. That's bananas. So but these buckets that the definitions, those are your definitions. You created this program, right? To define.
I created those and those definitions 7 years ago. EXP just launched luxury division. They define luxury homes as 3 times the average sale. Many companies have taken our definitions and ran with them. Now,
when you first got into real estate, I imagine your first listing wasn't luxury, or maybe it was.
Was not. I wish it was. When I first got into real estate, it's like the evolution of a real estate agent, right? You work with renters and then buyers of entry level, and then the light goes off and you realize I got to work smarter, not harder, and I got to get listings, right? List to live. And so then you list some entry level and some average. That's where most people focus. Out of the 1.5 million realtors, most focus in bucket 1 and 2, entry level and average. And so I help agents break down those barriers, think outside the box, and go after buckets 3, 4, and 5.
So what was the game changer for you to go from going through the motions, like you said, the evolution of a real estate agent, and then breaking into the luxury market? I imagine it didn't happen overnight, even though your first one wasn't a luxury listing. Now you go through, I guess, what would be maybe a couple years of selling homes, and then all of a sudden you get your first one. What does that look like?
So it looks like this. So I had a box of DVDs and CDs I used to sell called Ultimate Listing Blueprint. And I had the guy that he sold ERA franchises, ERA, Coldwell Banker, Better Homes and Garden.
Yeah.
He bought this box of DVDs for $497. And I had a module in there, how I got 8% listings when my competitors discounted, basically was the module.
Yeah.
Well, it turns out he said, hey, there's a luxury agent that's with ERA. She discounts her fees. I gave her your name, and I thought she was just going to recruit me. Well, it turns out I helped run office trainings and stuff. And that was in a town called Hinsdale, Illinois, where year in and year out, there's more $1 million sales in Hinsdale than any other Chicago suburb. So I hung my license there. I drove 40 minutes, and I started being around all these other luxury agents, and it was like, they don't know what the heck they're doing. They're not good marketers. They're not creative, yet they're selling the $1 million and $2 million. And it was kind of like, the over the top with Sylvester Stallone. I turned that hat around and said, you know what, I'm going to focus on luxury. And so I started, and I had people in the chamber all around town being like, where did this guy come from? Because I was young and I was aggressive.
Yeah.
Outside the box. And so I made the shift at that point as a trainer, speaker, author of helping agents get more leads and more listings of all price points to really focusing on luxury. And I switched my mentality as an agent. And so that's one of the things that we help agents today with, Remington, is breaking down those barriers. I call them limiting beliefs.
Yeah. One of my favorite controversial posts, and it's not super controversial, but sometimes I just like to stir the pot on Facebook and see what everyone's thinking.
Yeah.
I ask, do you have to drive a luxury car to sell a luxury home? And it wasn't controversial until the comments started coming in, and then people started fighting over this. So I'll ask you, Mr. Luxury, do you have to drive a luxury car to sell luxury homes?
No.
Okay. Do you feel like it helps? Do you feel like you have done that? What is
I have, listen, I have borrowed Bentleys and various vehicles when I was going on a, $6 million, $8 million, $3 million appointment. I used to drive a Cadillac ATS, which is kind of a smaller little Cadillac. It was clean. It was fine. I had one guy giving me grief about driving a Cadillac at the time. But my point is, if you drive a beater, it needs a muffler, it's rusted out, you might want to borrow someone's car for that appointment. Okay. But you don't have to drive that exotic car. People want authenticity in today's world. However, you do want to dress the part. You want to look good. Now, again, if I went on an appointment today, I might just have this golf polo on and a sport coat. But early on in my career, I'd wear the tie and a collared shirt, and I'd rather you overdress than underdress. But when you build a book of business and you have a good reputation, you don't want to lax on the way you look and you're presented. However, you don't have to dress to the nines if that's not you. Now, I know some people, like a good agent, I just help him. He's got Joe Dumar's listing in Detroit. He's got a $10 million listing. This guy looks like $1 million all the time. Wears 2 watches. I mean, he's got the Rolex on one and another watch on the other. But that's him. So be you, okay? But if you're going to err on the side of dressing a little bit nicer. But the car question, as long as it's a decent car, don't overthink it.
Yeah. And I agree with you on that. I actually believe that today more than ever, it doesn't really matter as much as it used to. Tell me if you agree with that though. Like back in probably the 80s and 90s, the optics of dressing nice and driving nice cars probably helps you better than it does today, because now the cool thing is to not, I mean, in some circles, maybe not all, but is to not flaunt, is to be casual, especially post COVID. I feel like we're dressing up a lot less. I wonder if that'll ever come back. What do you think?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would agree with you. Like, I don't know if it's the last 20 years, 10 years, but people are not as formal. Heck, all you got to do is look at Fetterman from Pennsylvania, the big with the Senate or whatever. The guy shows up in a hoodie and shorts. That doesn't look professional at all. But no. I don't want to talk politics here.
Well, if we do talk politics, let's at least talk NAR. What's going on right now with the claims, and you had mentioned in the pre-show about what direction we might take, how it will affect luxury if this lawsuit goes through, and if it doesn't, even the optics, what's going to happen to luxury?
Yeah, I mean, overall, we could spend hours on it. I had a guest on my podcast. I also have a podcast called Luxury Listing Specialist. We just released our 260th episode, and it's on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify. But right. I had James DeWiggins on our show, and he is Next Home. I think he's CEO of Next Home, but he's an expert at this. But I'm not going to get into the NAR requirement through RE/MAX or anywhere. They announced at today, the day we're recording this, that franchisors don't have to be members of NAR. But I am going to talk to you about co-op commission, right? So if you're an agent, I'm showing a home in Carmel, Indiana, I know what you're going to pay me. It says, and NAR used to say you have to pay out something. Well, now you don't have to do that anymore. And so buyers agents agreements are going to be even more important, and buyers might have to pay for buyer representation. And so now more so than ever, Remington, I believe that agents should, 2 things. A, try to get listings and be more listings agent than buyer's agent. Okay. Florida International did a study some years ago. They focused 3 segments of agents that work with buyers only, agents that work with buyers and sellers, and agents that work with sellers only. And the agents that worked with sellers only, i.e. listings, made a whopping 81% more than the next category. You've heard a sign in the yard is better than one in the car. Okay. So list to live. So I do think that agents should really try to get more listings, because if you get listings, you get more sign calls, you get more internet leads. I can't tell you how many high-end buyers I have that have signed buyer. I got a $6 million buyer right now. He's signed a buyer's agent agreement that he'll pay me if the seller chooses not to, because if you bring more value to the table, they'll pay for it. Now, again, there are some things going on right now that maybe lenders will incorporate the buyer's agent's fee into the loan for the buyer. I don't have a crystal ball, but I do think it's coming, unfortunately. the way that we're compensated. And so you just got to be prepared for it. And so one of the ways agents can be prepared for it, Remington, is be a content expert, be an advisor, be a consultant. Don't be a salesperson. Bring more value to the table so you can differentiate, because everybody knows a real estate agent in Indiana or in Illinois or fill in the blank.
Yep. I love it. Not to again focus too much on the politics, but you did mention that today is the day they made the announcement. So it is kind of breaking news. And I'm curious if, I mean, you know more about it than I do being an agent. What does this actually mean for NAR? So they announced that you no longer as a brokerage have to pay dues or be a part of it. What value were they bringing before where they feel like they don't need to do that anymore?
Well, I think, there's some lawsuits, there's some sexual harassment accusations. Redfin also announced earlier this week that they're not going to pay NAR anymore. They paid them, I think they said 70 million over the last 10 years. I don't know, some statistic like that. But, where my concern is the code of ethics. Now, each state has your own code of ethics. Okay. But that's my concern is, that we don't lower the bar from an ethics standpoint, right? I mean, in some countries, I'm speaking in Cabo here in a month, teaching my luxury designation training. It's like the wild, wild west. They don't have MLSs out there.
Yeah.
You don't have to be licensed in some parts of the world. And so the ethics are, it's the old strong arm politics. They'll sell you, a lemon, so to speak. So, I do feel like, I hope the code of ethics isn't weakened by this.
Yeah. Well, back to luxury listings, and you are selling primarily in Chicago. Is it the suburbs of Chicago that you find most of your listings, or all over Chicago?
All over. I sold Khalil Mack's home with the Bears a few years back. That's in the North Shore. We do stuff out west. I have Architectural Digest most beautiful home for sale in Illinois on the market for 9.5 in Barrington Hills. But we've sold in the city as well. Trump Tower, I was involved on a property that was 6.8 million and 9 Walton Place, so in downtown. So we do suburbs as well as city, but we vast majority do more suburbs.
I think what's fascinating is the fifth category you talked about, which is 10x the average home sale price. What's the major difference between a super luxury listing and just a little luxury listing, which is, still 3 times the average home sale?
Less buyers, right? You have a smaller pool of buyers, and each market is different, right? So, wealth, where's wealth coming from, right? So I just did a educational video on this. NAR just released where are foreign buyers buying the most, the 5 top states. Well, Florida's number one, 24% of foreign money is buying in Florida. And then second is California and Texas at 12%. Then you have North Carolina and I forget what the fifth one.
When you say foreign buyers, you're not just talking about luxury money. You're talking about all foreign money?
All foreign money. But my point is, certain markets, those upper price points trade a lot more than other markets. So Chicago, you can count on 1 or 2 fingers how many $10 million sales there are per year.
Wow.
But in Miami, right, that happens daily. In LA or some of these other markets, Austin. And so getting back to your original question, you have a smaller pool of buyers in that top 0.5% of homes, those ultra luxury. But I am a big believer in the top-down mentality. So Remington, if I had the highest priced properties in your market, there's street credibility, there's instant credibility when you represent those properties to the other price points. Those other price point buyers and sellers are going to be like, man, if Remington represented, Peyton Manning, he's got to be the real deal, or that manager did their due diligence. So there's that street cred when you represent those high-end properties.
When you're dealing with any type of luxury listing, whether it's a super luxury or not, do you find yourself doing as much networking nationally and maybe even internationally as you are your own city to find that buyer?
So yes, it really comes down to your network. The first thing that any high-end, I would call them HNWI, high net worth individuals, the first thing they're asking themselves, whether they call you, whether it be a sign call, internet lead, whether it be a referral, is can I trust you? Trust is the biggest thing with high net worth individuals. Okay. The other aspect is passions, hobbies, and interest. Passions, hobbies, and interest. They're trying to figure out somebody to have some synergies with, right? So what are your passions, hobbies, and interests? That's a good way to get in with some of these high net worth individuals, right? Golf, country club, Formula One, your wife has a horse, their wife has a horse, whatever, right? Passions, hobbies, and interest is really important when you're talking about penetrating some of these, like Robert De Niro called it, the circle of trust.
Yeah. Yeah, I got you. All right. So what are some of the mistakes that you see? Because you've been doing this for quite some time. So you probably see some new players on the block with the first or second luxury listing, and they're making all the mistakes that maybe you made, maybe you didn't. But what are some common mistakes as people are trying to break into this luxury market?
Well, number one, not vetting potential buyers. So if you have that listing, you want to get it sold. I'm looking behind you. You got a nice looking building behind you. Imagine that, a big mansion. You only get paid if it gets sold. So it's slow. What keeps you awake at night as the agent when you have a slow, stale listing? Am I going to get fired? Are they going to renew, et cetera? So you might lower your ethics and not even pre-screen buyers. Somebody calls you an agent. Oh, they've done it. You make the assumption they've pre-screened their buyer. Well, it might be an internet lead. It might be that agent's dream buyer, and they don't want to ask for proof of funds because they're hoping they're legitimate, because heck, that would be a 6-figure paycheck. And so, you have to advocate for your sellers as an agent. When you represent the seller, you have to screen people. You don't want unqualified buyers coming through there. And so I have a $9.5 million listing. I just got a call 2 days ago from somebody that wants to see it. Said, hey, I'd love to show it to you. Seller requires 2 to 3 days notice, but I need some type of proof of funds, whether it be a letter from a banker or CPA, whether it be a pre-approval, whether it be a bank statement that's unredacted. I need the name of the buyer. I don't want an LLC. The old proof of funds, and they show you a picture of a wad of money. That's not proof of funds.
I love it.
So that would be the biggest mistake that listing agents make, is they don't pre-screen potential buyers or buyers agents. And the other aspect is not positioning the home most effectively. So we're in a dating app industry. People are swiping left or swiping right on my properties or the properties of your listeners. And so you want more swipe rights, Remington, is what I've been told. So you got to have amazing photos. And so I literally just did a SWOT analysis on a $10 million listing this week. And I looked at the 61 photos, and I'd give her a C- at best for a $10 million listing.
Yeah.
The quality wasn't great. What they showed too much of certain things they shouldn't have shown too much, and not enough of others. Again, you can't make the assumption that people are going to go through photos 30 through 50 if 1 through 29 are terrible. So you got to grab their attention.
I picture your seminars going kind of like those Progressive commercials where he's teaching young people not to become their parents, and trying to teach the difference between a search bar on Facebook and your status update. Swiping right or left, like, what do your pictures look like? That would be a really funny. So I would watch that, Michael, if you created that.
Well, I do teach a strategy called OPP. Now, that was from Naughty by Nature in the 1990s. Down with OPP, you know me.
Yeah.
It's called Other People's Properties, because what the number one question I get asked a lot of times from newer agents or seasoned veterans that don't have any high-end or luxury or ultra-luxury homes in their portfolio is, what's the one tip? If I were to move to Carmel, Indiana, or LA or whatever, what would be the 1 or 2 things that I would do on a $0 budget to break into luxury in that market? And I know you didn't ask, but do you mind if I share that?
I would love to, yeah.
Yeah, so that's called my OPP, 3 letters, OPP, Other People's Properties. Number 1 is you should attend, now some parts of the U.S. and North America, broker open houses during the week where an agent hosts an open house for other agents are more popular than others. Okay. I would attend other agents' broker open houses that are those luxury listings, right? Yeah. And so, Remington, if you were that agent, and let's pretend this is a Wednesday and Friday you're having a broker open in Carmel, and we were to role play, ring ring.
Hello.
Hey, Remington, this is Mike LaFido with XYZ Realty. I'm just confirming that you're still having that broker open Friday between 1 and 3 p.m. Is that still the case for 123 Indianapolis Way?
Still going. Yep.
Hey, well, I'm a big believer in win-wins. I'm going to be attending, but I'd love to get you some free additional exposure to my network on social media. Do you have a single property website or your own website where the property's at, where I can tag you and get some additional exposure before attending on Friday? I'm a big believer in win-win. If I can get you more exposure, I might get a buyer to say, "Hey, Mike, let's go look at that one," and I'd love to bring you a buyer.
Sure. Yeah, that sounds great.
So win-win. You see what I did there? Win-win.
I do. And let me ask you something. There's some code of ethics things that you got to be worried about, right? Because sometimes if you tag someone else's property, but is the only qualification in most states that you just have to ask them to be able to post it on social media?
If the listing agent gives you permission, again, for your listeners, check with your broker, check with your broker, check with your broker. But if the listing agent gives you authorization to share, so there's something called broker reciprocity right now where like my listing would show up on your website, even if I'm with Remax and you're Coldwell Banker, that's called broker reciprocity. However, if I manually posted, if I manually showed some, I need your permission, ideally in writing, text or email ahead of time. So as long as you give me permission as the agent, shouldn't be a problem. Second, other people property would be if you have a listing and you're my office, I would say, "Hey, Remington, would you mind if I host an open house at your listing on Indianapolis Way this weekend?" Okay. So now I'm getting in front of buyers, I'm posting videos. And then the third would be leveraging other people's successful sales within the company or just notable celebrities. People love celebrities. Stallone just listed his home, so consistently doing that. So now when people are lazy and they're on their Facebook, they're swiping every week, Remington, they see you at a cool property and they don't even know what the hell you're saying. You could be saying, "It's not my listing. It's not my listing."
Right.
But they associate you with luxury.
Clicking on it. Yeah. I love that. Well, one of my questions that we didn't get to, but this kind of sums it up, is how do you fake it till you make it in luxury? And that's, for lack of a better term, one of the best ways to do it is OPP. So I love it.
Well, grow your knowledge and your confidence will grow. Okay. Grow your knowledge and your confidence will grow. So what are you listening to? That's luxury. What are you reading? Okay. That's going to be important. Limiting beliefs that most agents have. They think they have to be licensed X amount of years before they sell luxury. False. They believe they got to be with that luxury brokerage in town to sell luxury. False. They got to live in that big home to sell those big homes. False. I got to drive that Maserati, Lamborghini to sell those homes. False. And the worst one is, hey, there's already blank number of luxury agents in my market. There's not room for another. So those are all false, false, false. And that's what we work on with our course, our books. We break down barriers. I got to give a plug to my next book real quick, if you don't mind. It's called
go ahead. That's where we're going to finish up.
Secrets of Top Luxury Agents will be out before the end of the year. Undercover billionaire Glenn Stearns is writing the foreword. I have Jack Cotton, luxury icon in the industry, amongst others, are contributing. It'll be on Amazon. It's called Secrets of Top Luxury Agents.
I love it, Michael. Well, this has been eye-opening, and I learned a lot. Things that you debunked, a couple of things that I thought were necessary to be a luxury agent or to get into that. And I don't even think this just applies to real estate. I think a lot of these tips and tricks apply to really any type of business if you're trying to position yourself around the luxury market of whatever it is that you're selling. Where can we find you next?
The best, you can obviously Google me, but the best way is our luxurylistingspecialist.com, luxurylistingspecialist.com. We have a bunch of free resources on there from our podcast, our blog, our blueprint, and our designation, which is an online self-paced course, luxurylistingspecialist.com, Remington. Appreciate it.
Thanks for being on the show, Michael. That's Michael LaFido, luxury listing specialist out of the Chicago market. We'll see you next time.